Welcome to the Lance Wallnau Show. Now listen, in the realm of journalism, there's nobody like John Solomon. He's the real deal. I mean, this is the guy that actually does the reporting. When I first heard about his underground reporting on Russiagate, exposing the thread of deception in the FBI, two guys actually approached him in trench coats in his hometown there in D.C., and they came up by his car, and he didn't know what was going to happen. And they said, just want to let you know you're on the right track. Keep going. And then they left him. When I first heard that, I thought, that's spooky. But you see, they were saying there are good guys out there. We need them. John Solomon's going to be answering some very important questions I've got for you. And you know, one of the things which I'm looking at with great concern is what's happened with the McCarthy debt deal, which we now know it was $2 trillion, $4 trillion, $5 trillion. I keep hearing the number going up because evidently there's no ceiling on it. And it's going to be 2 years of free fall at a time when I think the nation is, if you don't mind me saying so, heading for divine disciplines. But God always forewarns his people that I'm telling you, if you've got money tied up in the paper currency of the dollar, you want to start to reevaluate that. Your IRA and your 401k, I would be thinking seriously about moving it out of paper because of the inflationary cycle that's going to be hitting again, and moving it into gold, because the gold will store your value. The gold will actually increase in value. Whatever happens with the dollar, you've got something which the banks themselves are stockpiling right now. And so I want to encourage you to go to lancewallnau.com/safe, S-A-F-E. Why safe? Because I asked them to provide you with a safe. If you meet a certain threshold of giving into your own retirement, or if you put a certain amount of money in gold and silver, they're going to send you the safe to protect it with. And this is going to be only good till July 7th, so move fast. lancewallnau.com/safe. The offer is good to July 7th. Jump in and grab it. You'll have peace of mind. That's what I believe God wants you to have. Now, John Solomon, ladies and gentlemen, let's go right in. Welcome to the Lance Wallnau Show. And today, I have the privilege of having one of the great minds and journalists that I myself listen to. When I talk to you, you got to know that I'm getting my facts from John Solomon. And if I'm wrong, it's John's fault because he didn't do his research right.
That's right.
So, John, thanks for being on the show today.
What a great honor to be with you, Lance. Thank you for having me.
I first heard about you, and the story was and I caught you just randomly on the radio, and you were talking about two trench coat guys that came up to your car when you were in D.C., and you're looking nervously at this, and they come up and deliver the message, you're on the right track, and then leave. What was that for everyone else to catch up? This is my introduction to John Solomon.
Yeah.
What was that?
It was 6 years ago in March. I just made an appearance on Hannity. I've been in the news media business for 35 years, worked at AP, the Washington Post, mainstream media, went to become the editor of the Washington Times and started my own site. And we were reporting on FISA abuses, not related to Russia or anything involving Trump, just old-fashioned, the FBI abusing the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. I did a big story, went on Hannity that night, Sarah Carter and I. Came home, I was pulling into my driveway, it was about 11 o'clock at night. There was a blue car with government license plates on it. Lights, the parking lights were on. I pulled in the driveway, guys got out of the car. They looked to be in the military. I think they probably were in the Air Force, maybe the NSA. And they said, "Are you John Solomon?" Yes, sir. And is there anything wrong? I said, no. We want to let you know that you're at the tip of a very large iceberg, that what you were reporting on today actually goes far deeper, far worse than you know. And we've been carrying out a political dirty trick using the awesome powers of the United States government. Like, what are you talking about? And he said, you'll have to figure it out. Most of it's classified. Keep scratching, keep digging. But it isn't an accident that there's been abuses of the FISA law. And just think about what's going on in the current marketplace. And I think of Trump, Russia collusion, because that's what people are writing about. And I remember said to him, I said, why are you doing this? Why'd you pick me? Why are you doing this? And he said, you need us, pointing themselves. We need these tools that we're using to protect people from real terrorism threats, real counterintelligence threats. If we've abused them, as I believe we have, we won't have these tools in the future, and we won't be able to keep you safe. That's what's at stake here. So go do some reporting. So my head was spinning. I went down to the basement. I typed up everything I could remember because I wasn't taking notes. And Sarah Carter and I started on a 6-year journey to unravel what ultimately became Russian collusion. Yeah,
I'll
two
tell
patriots.
I'll tell you right now, if God wanted to send you a message,
Yeah.
he sent them to send you a
There's
message.
no doubt.
So what's your response when you hear a week ago 24 FBI agents coming forward, and in the final commentary, one of these brave men saying, if you're thinking of coming forth, pray long and hard about it because they'll destroy you. This must frustrate you that you've been on this case from the beginning, and there still is this.
All those brave patriots that are coming forward, those guys didn't obviously go through the official whistleblower process, but many have. What happens to them? They have the security clearance pulled. Their paychecks then pulled because the security clearance is pulled. They sit for a year unable to work. Their families drain their bank accounts, and then the FBI separates from them. That's what's happened to multiple whistleblowers who tried to alert us to things. Now, how serious is it? Is it just a couple people fighting over Donald Trump and Joe Biden? No, it's much bigger than that. Think about what we learned from the FISA court on Friday night. There are, in the last year of record, which is actually 2021, there were 278,000 times that the FBI abused the Patriot Act and FISA to spy on Americans without justification. 250,000 people in a single year. This is way bigger than Trump v. Biden, way bigger than a few disgruntled FBI agents. The awesome powers of the United States are now being turned against its people in ways that the Fourth Amendment never intended, the First Amendment didn't intend. The government and the great constitutional republic that we built that's protected all of us is really in grave danger of imploding on itself. That's why so many people are coming forward. They're all going to lose their jobs. There's not going to be any system to protect them. We have some new IRS whistleblowers coming out now saying that the thumb's been on the scale, the Hunter Biden investigation.
And
they're already seeing retaliation.
Takes a singular kind of courage.
Yeah,
it's what I call career martyrdom. They know, like the FBI, that I'm stepping in there. It's going to register tremendous disapproval because somebody in the Treasury Department has been suppressing information.
That's right.
For political reasons, and those names will come up.
Yep. Yeah, their careers are done, and they know it. I've talked to a lot of these whistleblowers. They knew stepping forward was the end of their law enforcement career, the FBI career, but they felt that there was a larger principle. That, listen, what good is a law enforcement career if the law and orders that we created this country on are no longer being abided by? They're willing to risk everything to tell the American people what's been going on for the last 6-7 years. Big stuff.
I'm virtually speechless when I think about this. What do you think, Senator Grassley? I know Grassley and Mike Davis. So as I'm getting educated in my audience, then I educate my audience.
Yeah.
Grassley has oversight of the whistleblower program, doesn't he?
Well, he's on one of the committees that does. He's been a champion of whistleblowers all the way back to the 80s.
Right.
And many of the whistleblower laws in place today that protect whistleblowers, he either authored or helped shepherd through the Senate or the House. And so he's the guy that most whistleblowers go to when they know they have something serious and they're about to be destroyed.
And so, when he came up for re-election, I was really concerned that we got our people educated that, look, all senators aren't created equal.
That's
Some
right.
of them are really incredibly important. He's one of them.
He is.
And so he has a but he's part of the aristocracy, and they have a protocol. And I always respect the Senate. They're not like the scrappers in Congress.
No, they're very different. Yeah.
But they do telegraph
Yeah.
when you've offended their majesty.
That's right.
And I think that Grassley has the attitude right now that he's being a little bit disrespected for that. And that's not good because he'll come down.
He has protected more whistleblowers. I mean, you go back to the FBI lab, a scandal of the 1990s. Chuck Grassley protected the people there. Fred Whitehurst, the whistleblower there. The 9/11, the FBI and the CIA pretty much put most of 9/11 together, but they didn't roll it up. Whistleblowers came forward to divulge that he protected them. He has been there, and right now he realizes that these IRS agents who've come forward in the last couple of days, the FBI agents a few months ago.
What's coming up, John? Tell me about the IRS agents coming up this week.
He's likely to testify there's a supervisory IRS criminal investigator, one of the most decorated agents in the IRS. He's trusted with the most sensitive cases like the Swiss bank case, which we know is one of the biggest tax cases in American history. He's supervising a team that was assigned to the Hunter Biden investigation. He came forward 3 weeks ago saying that my team and the FBI agents have been prevented from taking steps to investigate Joe Biden. We've been thwarted in bringing tax charges against Hunter Biden. And I'd like to tell my story to the Justice Department IG, he has, and to Congress. Now, the Justice IG is the same Justice IG that helped us unravel the Russia collusion story to find out that was a ruse. He's investigating it now. Congress, the Ways and Means Committee, is the only committee that can do this because the case involves tax privacy protected information. Hunter Biden is given the assumption of tax privacy. But he believes there's enough wrongdoing that Congress should pierce that tax privacy and listen to what he has to say. And he's going to deliver documents as well. He has evidence that for at least 2 years, maybe a little bit longer, the lead agents, the career people, have been thwarted in investigating Hunter Biden, indicting Hunter Biden, and taking steps that could answer questions about Joe Biden. Did Joe Biden benefit from these transactions? Did he assist these transactions? He's going to go before the Ways and Means Committee behind closed doors as early as Friday of this week. In a few weeks, the committee will vote that testimony out, and we'll know exactly what this whistleblower knows.
So how far can the Justice Department interfere with justice on this?
They can interfere in many ways. They could refuse to bring charges. They could tell their team, don't share certain evidence with the FBI and the IRS. And I believe one of the big questions that will come out at the hearing in this closed-door interview, there are all this evidence on the Hunter Biden laptop, which we now know to be real. We were told it was disinformation. It's real. That shows that Hunter Biden wasn't paying taxes on Ukraine payments, like $400,000 of Ukraine money got. Going back to 2014, we don't believe the IRS was actually given that evidence. They may have been kept from it. So if you keep evidence from the investigators, you can change the outcome of the case. You can let statutes of limitations expire. And there's a big fear that that may have happened. So there are many different ways that career and political appointees can interfere in a case without the American public knowing about it.
So, and it's not only there, but I mean, I think they have a problem because if you've got 9 family members that are on the payroll without any actual services that are rendered for that money,
knows what they got for the money,
which is its own problem. But they have to record that or not record it. Nobody knows what's going on there. But my suspicion is that they might have the same problem. How do I account for this money that, Hunter's kind of getting me here from the 10%
that's one of the many questions that James Comer particularly is looking at. Did they declare this on income? Why did it hop through so many stops? Why are there so many LLCs? And
what's the 20 corporations for?
Yeah, exactly. Most people have 1 or 2 corporations and they run the money through it. Why is money held for a long time and suddenly paid? We don't know answers yet because for a long time, congressional investigators were kept from the Treasury Department records. They wouldn't let them see them. Recently, James Comer was able to bowl over that. He got to see the records. Now he has a roadmap of how these money transactions occurred. Now we're going to see who benefited, why did they benefit, and what was done. And at the end of the day, the most important question to the American people, we understand Hunter Biden's issues. Did Joe Biden take actions as president that benefited his family's business partners? Did he manipulate U.S. policy to try to benefit these corporations? Did he get any of the money in return? Did Hunter Biden pay his bills? There's some evidence of that in the laptop. Those are the fundamental questions I think Americans want to know and need to know for the 2024 election, because in 2020, their job interview with Joe Biden got interrupted at the debate when he was being asked about the laptop. He said, it's Russian disinformation. That was a ruse.
All right. Now, I've had nobody able to answer this question for me. You're the one guy I've been waiting to talk to.
Thank you.
50 names.
Yeah.
They basically signed off. Some of them were given quid pro quos implied by, so they get a release for their manuscripts to be published,
right,
et cetera. By the way, we're releasing that. We need your signature on this.
Yeah.
So what, if anything, is the remedy for that?
Nothing will happen inside the Biden Justice Department or the Biden administrations, because those agencies are aligned with the president right now. And they, as you saw from the emails between Mike Morrell and John Brennan and others, they were encouraging this. They wanted this to happen. They lied to the American people. Spies put their thumb on the scale of the 2020 election. They weren't North Korean spies. They weren't Chinese, Russian spies. They weren't Iranian spies. They were American spies who used all the craft and power and the credentials we gave them in their jobs to fool us into thinking that the Hunter Biden laptop wasn't real. The only consequence that is potential in the next year or two is that Kevin McCarthy, the House Republicans, can vote to say anyone who has a pension, we want to suspend their pension. Anyone who wants to get a future federal contract, you can't get it. You want your security clearance, no tax dollars can be spent giving you a security clearance. You'll never be able to hold a position in government again. They can use the power of the purse to exact some form of punishment. It's unclear whether Republicans will do that. They're talking about it. Jim Jordan's talking about it.
Right.
James Comer. But talk is one thing, action's another thing. We'll see. The opportunity for that will be in the September timeframe when they create the 2024 budget. Will they put these riders in there and say, those 51, no tax dollars, no pensions, That will be a big moment if that were to happen.
A huge moment. You know, we have 2 minutes, 22 seconds left.
Yep.
And John Solomon, you've got just the news. I want to make sure we do this now before we get to the end. How can people stay in touch with you and keep up with your excellent journalism?
We're very lucky. JustTheNews.com is our website. We have millions of people that come there every month. I have a podcast called John Solomon Reports. That's on all the podcast platforms. I have a television show on Real America's Voice, 6 p.m. with Amanda Head, an amazing, great conservative journalist. It's called Just the News, No Noise, 6 p.m. I follow Steve Bannon on the network. He throws to me every night. And then on social media, every platform, Truth Getter, Twitter, Facebook, is J. Solomon Reports.
All right. Do you see evidence out there of the grassroots growing in terms of their focus, engagement, and because I just talked to a Tea Party guy that helped launch the Tea Party, right? And he said that, he's seeing the same energy out there. Is that what you're observing?
I do. I've done a lot of reporting on this. I think in the spring and summer of 2023 right now, the energy level looks like 1980 Reagan, 1994 Gingrich, 2010 Tea Party, 2016 Donald Trump. There is a determination. I was in Philadelphia, and a young mom came up to me and said, I grew up during the Reagan era. My mom said she believed in the silent majority because Ronald Reagan described it, and I believe it too. But we can't be silent anymore. Silence is complicity. For an everyday mom who's just trying to get her kids to school and soccer practice, go to her job every day, to have that level of certitude and passion, I think there's going to be this is going to be a sea change election. I don't know which way the waves are going to blow yet, but I do think that Americans want a major change of course, and this election is going to be the chance to do it. And I think the big change, conservatives are going to get involved in early voting. They nearly won the last 3 elections without it. I think it's a game changer for the outcome of the 2024 election.
It is, and we're going to need to clean up some voter rolls.
No doubt.
There's half a dozen ways these things get stolen.
Yeah.
But I do believe that were you surprised by the midterm results?
I wasn't, because you could see Republicans weren't doing early voting. Democrats were doing it right to 2 o'clock on election day. Ron Johnson wins. Tim Michaels doesn't. What's the difference? In the same state, Ron Johnson did early voting. Tim didn't. I think those are the sort of lessons we learned and we carry into 2024.
Well, that's an encouraging analysis. The votes were there, but the tactics weren't.
Yeah.
John Solomon, you all want to listen to him. I do. It's where I get my information. Like I say, if I'm off, blame John. Thank you, John.
Good to be with you,
God
Lance.
bless
Thank
you.
You too.
We'll be right back. Everybody is concerned about what's happening to the economy. I mean, it wouldn't be too far conjecture to say that it's almost as though America is experiencing a recession that looks like it could be heading into a depression. And I'm praying that Donald Trump's prophecy that you'll see a depression the likes of which you've never seen never happens. But you know, the guy was uncannily accurate in so many things he said. That's why I'm telling my friends to go to Birch Gold right now, lancewallnau.com/Birch. Get the 25-page report on how you can protect your wealth, protect your investments, protect your IRA, protect your retirement. The report that they give you is an explanation as to how commodities and gold and silver variously work during periods of time when the dollar is unstable. I'm telling you, you need to get the education. Knowledge is power. lancewallnau.com/Birch. You won't regret it. I love John Solomon and Just the News. Keep tracking with what he's saying. The next man that I want you to listen to is equally the expert in his field. He has argued before the Supreme Court, I think, 6 times, or at least he's had 5 different federal appellate courts that he's argued in front of. And he represented the Masterpiece Cake Shop versus Colorado, the crazy gay activists that tried to shut down a baker, bankrupt him, and put him out of business, literally setting him up and forcing him to have to choose between obeying his conscience or honoring their demand that he make them a gay wedding cake. But he's also was the lead brief writer in 2 other U.S. Supreme Court wins, Reed versus Town of Gilbert and Arizona Christian School. And we don't even hear about these cases. But the fact is, we're winning in the courts because of what Donald Trump did. I want you to hear Jeremy Tedesco share with you what the big threat is regarding ESG. That's the environmental, social, governance issues. And also J.P. Morgan's case where they discontinued the banking of Ambassador Sam Brownback. It's discrimination based on religion alone But we've got these men on the front lines. You need to meet them, learn who they are, pray for them, because they really are the warriors that are protecting you. Jeremy Tedesco, watch this. Welcome back to the Lance Wallnau Show, ladies and gentlemen. We are actually going to be doing something very important right now. We're going to be talking about how David takes on Goliath, Wall Street, the woke corporations, big banking. I'm telling you, these guys somehow overnight became a menace to the ordinary American, the conservative, and it's really freaking me out now about what we're going to do about it, because I've had my bank account frozen, been investigated. Friends of mine like Ambassador Sam Brownback, who just stopped by the booth here, told me about the nightmare scenario he was going through. But how serendipitous that Jeremy Tedesco is with us, Senior Vice President regarding corporate consulting, Alliance Defending Freedom. Thank you so much for being here, Jeremy.
My pleasure.
Talk to us about what this is. What has happened that has suddenly made the corporations that used to be actually concerned about public opinion, why are they being so, what's the word, threatening to conservatives and conservative values and people like us? What's going on?
Sure. Well, at the big picture level, it's really about ESG. I'm sure your audience has heard about environmental, social, and governance. ESG activists are progressive and left-wing activists that are targeting corporations and trying to convince them to adopt policies, practices, and other things that are censorial in nature, that are hostile to free speech and religious freedom. And the corporations are listening, and in large part because there's no real response from conservatives who are shareholders of those companies, customers of those companies, and even employees inside those companies to push back on this. So they've really become beholden, the corporations, to ESG. And part of ESG, the S in ESG, is social. And what they drive through the S in ESG is pro-abortion policies. They drive censorship policies at social media companies and banks, and they demand mistreatment of religious institutions and organizations and other businesses they don't like fossil fuels, oil, gas, guns. I mean, basically, it's the way for the left to use corporations to regulate society in a way they can't get done through the electoral process.
And of course, you're a lawyer. So did you take a look at what the Justice Gorsuch wrote recently about Americans with his assessment of the degree of intrusion of federal oversight and expansion into the freedoms of average Americans?
Yeah.
And his whole point is how dangerously passive Americans are in the face of federal government overreach. And the same thing's happening with corporations. Passivity is deadly.
I think that's right. There's a lot of passivity. There's a lot of conditioning, intentional conditioning of people to be accepting of encroachments on their liberties. And you know, we have to wake up to the fact that private corporations, the concentration of power in the hands of private corporations, especially those that control essential services like banking and payment processing, and even the digital public square, those folks have an unmatched power that we've almost never seen in our society before. Their power is just as threatening, if not more, to speech and religion than the government's power. They can turn off your bank account overnight. They can stop you from communicating in what is today's public square, the social media, digital public square.
Sure. They deplatform you. They can defund you, like defund the police. They can just defund you.
That's right.
And now what did they do with Ambassador Brownback? What happened with him?
Yeah, well, he opened an account at J.P. Morgan Chase last year, April or so, and about 3 weeks later, they closed the account, gave him no reason why. And over the next several months, and really for about a year, they kept demanding for an answer. And whenever Chase gave an answer, it was always different than the last answer and contradictory, and it usually didn't make any sense at all. And so they always said, we don't debank people because of religion or politics. But there's really no other explanation for what they did.
But wasn't it an organization he had, which was a nonprofit, and did it have to do with religious freedom or something?
Yeah.
You talk about chutzpah. This is where the Jewish people make the word. You debank a man who's an ambassador, a faith ambassador for global tolerance and inclusion, and punish him because he wants to have freedom of religion and freedom of speech.
Yeah. Well, their explanations were really quite laughable. One of the first ones they gave was that they were concerned about money laundering and financing of international terrorism.
Oh, yeah. Sticky fingers over there at the Billy Graham Association. Keep an eye on Mother Teresa. These guys.
Chase's explanations never added up. And really the only thing you can take away from them is they were covering up what looked to be like political or religious discrimination.
Of course.
Yeah.
But they have you. So, all right, so you go after them. Now, you do, but you're a good cop, bad cop. You strike me as someone who's shrewd enough to know that these guys that are the woke boards and management, I think that they don't, if you don't voice up to them, hey, stop that, you're annoying me, they actually go along with the loudest activists and the information they're getting from their HR department, coming out of the woke university, the whole new suite of young people coming in and working. They're not representing middle-class America for the most part, certainly. So I don't think that they really realize that it's kind of like with Fox. I was talking to someone recently that Murdoch and those guys realized now they made a terrible miscalculation regarding Tucker. They didn't recognize Tucker had brand connection like Bud Light with the Fox audience. They thought they could get rid of him, and the audience didn't care. The audience does care. These companies, these banks ought to know that we care. But how do we send that message?
Well, what we're doing at ADF, at Alliance Defending Freedom, is we started the Viewpoint Diversity Score Business Index. What it does is rate corporations in the finance and tech spaces on 42 factors that measures their respect for free speech and religious freedom. And one of the things we're looking for on that index, amongst many, is whether they have vague policies that will allow them to deplatform or debank people for religious and political reasons. You know, none of these companies have policies that say, we're going to cancel you if you have religious or political views we disagree with. What they do have are policies that allow them, very vaguely worded policies like hate and intolerance and offensiveness. And they basically say, look, you know, we're going to cancel you because you violated our policies, and never give you the real reason. So we're trying to clamp down on those kinds of policies. And we're also trying to inspire shareholders and others to engage these corporations, because a lot of what's going on is that there is no counterweight. We haven't shown up to this fight. And so we're encouraging people to show up. Just this year, we had 9 shareholders. We had shareholders file shareholder resolutions at 9 different financial institutions, raising concerns over politicized debanking. And that's the way you get an audience and get their attention and drive change inside the corporations.
You guys listening to this? Because I think we have to be intelligently organizing. The left organizes. I mean, that's one thing they do. But this Viewpoint Diversity Score Business Index, that's a mouthful. It's not even an acronym. So, but it reveals how corporations like Chase, PayPal, Microsoft, Alphabet, and Meta have work to do. But higher scores from 8 companies, including large jumps by Fidelity Information Services and M&T Bank, due to survey participation, show improvements possible. So you give them the feedback. And if they really feel like you've got a shout with some clout, they'll actually take you seriously, right? And they'll go, well, so how do you communicate to them that you represent a formidable body of interests?
Well, a huge part of it is just leveraging shareholders. There's a lot of institutional shareholders and individual shareholders out there who have significant positions. And what we find when we talk to the corporations, and especially and our friends talk to the corporations, is that they tell our audience and our friends, we're so glad you showed up. We knew there were people like you who existed, who had these kind of values, and we just need you to show up and give us the cover to be able to go back to the board, back to the C-suite and say, hey, this isn't just a one-way conversation. There are people on the other side of this who have different values. They're very reasonable people of good faith. And so we ought not to, for instance, pay for abortions out of state, just as a reaction to Dobbs, which was a huge pressure point from left-wing activists after Dobbs came down. And so, we have stories of situations where the push to fund abortions out of state by corporations was nullified because good people showed up inside the corporation and said, that's not the right way to go from the standpoint of respecting our values and beliefs. And so a lot of times our shareholders too, when they file resolutions, they get to have a conversation with the C-suite, with the general counsel's office, and just talk to them about the things that we care about, our concerns about their impact as a corporation on people's free speech and religious freedom. And that starts a conversation that can be very productive. We've had productive conversations with a couple corporations, Fidelity Information Services especially, that led to FIS getting 32 points higher on the index 1 year to the next. So it's those kind of jumps that are really important. FIS is a payment processor. We need payment processors who are not going to debank conservatives and Christians.
I'm so furious with this. Do you know how frustrating it is? I mean, look at Trudeau, what Trudeau did with the truckers in Canada. Mm-hmm. You want to see where socialism naturally wants to go? Put you out of business, then use the Department of Justice, something to start prosecuting you. it's scary, folks. I'm not joking about this. We have been asleep at the switch. All right, and so Jeremy, let's clarify it once again. ESG, DEI, CRT, for all of our people out there that this is all any new for them.
Yeah.
What is the takeaway for us out here?
Well, the bottom line is, DEI means diversity, equity, and inclusion. And activists are demanding that corporations adopt this as the way they train their workforces through DEI programs. The problem with that is DEI is really just smuggling in CRT and critical gender theory into the workplace. And so it's toxifying the workplace, it's creating divisions in the workplace, it's teaching people really toxic messages and ideas about race, the oppressor-oppressed dichotomy, and all those things.
My God.
So there's already been articles out saying that corporations are realizing that this is not the best thing to feed their employees to create unity, and cohesion. Yeah. So
they're sowing discord, and it's almost like trying to find reasons for offense.
That's right.
And creating, instead of building trust, you're building anxiety in a corporate culture. I mean, I can think of 1,000 reasons why it's stupid.
Yeah. Well, that's what the employees are saying when they get surveyed by. We did a survey where 40% of the employees said, "Well, I was more fearful to express my ideas and views on these issues after this training." We have model programs that some of our partners have put together to help workplaces that want to change direction on that, to adopt things that are positive about classic virtues and just treating people well despite their beliefs.
I think that's more common sense if common sense prevail. Well, okay, so Jeremy, this has been we're going to talk some more because this is a very stimulating conversation, and I think there's ways in which our community, we got 100,000 people who will watch this, for instance, if they were informed on the latest viewpoint diversity score index on a particular company. Many of them are shareholders, and many of them are consumers, and they could communicate to that company. I think we can act more together. But how do they get in touch with you, and what's the best way to support what you're doing?
Yeah, I really appreciate that. Viewpointdiversityscore.org is where the business index is housed, and you can find a whole slew of information there on the project and engage with us.
And do you rank these corporations?
Yeah, all 75 corporations are ranked right there. You can interact with all the findings and see why they're scoring so low.
I envision a day when we go through that on a program like this and we just say, what's the latest? And we pick number one, and everybody, all hands to the pump, and we all communicate our encouragement to that company. Does that make sense? I don't know. That might be tortious interference. I'll find out from my lawyer whether I get in trouble. But thank you very much.
Thank you, Lance.
Did you enjoy this latest episode? Please remember to share it with your friends, because the more knowledge you have, the better equipped you are to navigate the world.
If you're like me, you get frustrated when you see Target and these big shop stores that are pushing their woke agenda on your children. How do you fight back? Well, you got to reorganize. Public square is what you've got to do. I want you to give your business to people that share your values, share your faith, that are patriots, that are pushing back on these big woke corporations. Go to lancewallnau.com/public square or public SQ. Download the free app so that you can shop with people in your own area. Put the money in your community in the pockets of the friends that are sharing your values. And by the way, if you've got a business, you especially need to use this app because you can put your business on the app so that other people know who you are and they can do business with you. lancewallnau.com/public square. Do it now.